Hello, everyone. Welcome to BiogasWorld's Emerging Biogas Markets webinar, discussing the opportunities and challenges of some emerging biogas markets. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be shared with participants following the webinar. In addition, if you have any questions for our presenters, we invite you to write them in the chat, and we will ask our presenters following their presentations or in the Q&A at the end of the webinar. BiogasWorld hosts new country-focused webinars each month to discuss the opportunities and challenges within various markets. Be sure to also join us on our biogas community website for the latest updates and to network with companies in the biogas and biomethane industry. I would like to thank our presenters for joining us today. Shahana McKenzie, CEO at Bioenergy Australia, Niraj Kunkulol, Sales Engineer at Bright Renewables, Adrian Kronawitter, Sales Manager at Biogest, and Joaquim Cunha, Sales Manager at Sysadvance. Our first presenter today is Shahana McKenzie. Shahana is the CEO at Bioenergy Australia, listed in the top 100 green influencers of 2023, and creator of successful campaigns such as the Renewable Gas Alliance, Renewable Gas Challenge, and Renewable Gas Meets Parliament. She'll be providing an update on the state of play of biogas in Australia. Shahana, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so firstly, thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it. It is 11 p.m. here, so I'm going to turn off my camera and focus on presenting instead of falling asleep. So apologies that, but hi everyone, great to be here. I suppose my agenda today is really to talk about where things stand in Australia and how I suppose we see it progressing in the industry moving forward. And really to give a bit of a snapshot to Australia and what it looks like and our population. So we have a population of 26 million. If you compare that to the US, I think it's 330 million. And if you compare that to China, it is 1.4 billion. But then when you look on how large Australia is, we take up pretty much the same, I would say probably a larger landmass than the US, and we cover all of Europe. So a massive, massive land, not a very high population. We actually export 70% of what we produce in ag, which is a massive opportunity. And we are really bad at waste. So Australia has a long history of digging really big holes and putting all of our landfill into holes. We traditionally have not sorted. We don't take organics out. We don't do FOGO. And so for us, it definitely is a massive opportunity. And I also, just being cheeky because the Olympics are on, and I will be waking up at 3 a.m. tomorrow morning to watch Australia play Greece in the quarterfinal for water polo. We are fourth on the tally for the Olympics right now. But, like if you think that China is and the US are there with us, it's quite incredible. So where do we sit globally? Not great. The slide, the graph here to the left is obviously showing some very small numbers. Australia is sitting at 1.5. If you then move to the middle one, Germany is sitting on close to 120. And then if you move to China, we're looking at 70,000. So we're coming from a very low base here in Australia. So why? Why is there now this rapid acceleration and interest in Australia in relation to renewable gas? We had a change of government in Australia around 2 years ago, and it was very much on a climate change action agenda. So that's been very prevalent in all of the work that's been done. Energy security in Australia is a massive issue. We import 99% of our liquid fuels. Unfortunately, because we didn't have any gas reservation policies except in Western Australia, we export most of our gas and then we import it back in. Massive issue. We have really limited options in Australia for hard to abate sectors. Trucks are driving really long distances. Manufacturers and industrial don't have a lot of options. And it really is very prevalent. As I said, on waste, we have a massive waste footprint and we need to change that. And the next one is Australia signed up to the Global Methane Pledge. So that one, we now need to work out how we're going to do that. And then, as everyone on this call would know, jobs and economic growth for regions. So looking at where Australia currently sits, you can see here the projects. So we don't have a lot, but we have a few. We have around 250 anaerobic digestion projects in Australia. All of those, except for one, are either behind the meter or generating heat or electricity. We only have one project which is injecting biomethane into the gas network. Predominantly, we have anaerobic digesters at wastewater treatment plants, piggeries, abattoirs, and the like, and then quite a bit of landfill gas. So where to? In 2021, the federal government announced the Bioenergy Roadmap, and that really has paved the path for us in relation to what we're advocating for, what we're working on, and aligning industry in behind those outcomes. What the Bioenergy Roadmap showed was a massive resource that is available. So 2,600 petajoule of potential bioenergy that could be activated. And I probably just want to share with listeners today that Australia has some rather archaic policies. So you can still burn crops out in the field. You can burn sugarcane, you can burn wheat straw, and that's quite different to a lot of other jurisdictions. So for us, the opportunity around utilisation of those residues and those otherwise called waste streams to create an energy source is highly valuable. And I suppose to also put it in context, in Australia, we use around 700 petajoule of gas, and you can see from there 2,600. So the Bioenergy Roadmap really paved the way. It said that by 2030, we could basically replace 33% of the industrial heat market with renewable heat, that we could replace 23% of the domestic gas market with renewable gas, and 18% of the aviation fuel market with SAF. So there's been a lot of work that's taken place since then, and no doubt the callers on the line would know about, sort of first generation biogas and moving into those new sort of areas, lignocellulosic and the like. So the Race for 2030, which is a joint funded government and industry, has been doing a huge amount of work here. And what you can see here is in 2022, the number of projects, 242, out to 2050 on the left-hand side. So really what that's showing is that low-hanging fruit around landfill, sewage, manure, etc. We probably can create around 52 petajoule. But if we start to look at agricultural residues, there is another massive opportunity with 319 petajoule there. And you can see on the right-hand side, what that equates to is us going from 242 projects, anaerobic digesters, to 18,742. So what are we doing? Well, we created something called the Renewable Gas Alliance. The Renewable Gas Alliance has over 250 participants, and it's the entire supply chain. So we have feedstock providers through to project developers, technology partners. We have all of the major pipeline and infrastructure owners that send the gas around Australia. We have retailers, so those that are at the front end of selling that, as well as off-takers. So you can see in our list here, we have PepsiCo. PepsiCo's snacks business is cooking chips and Doritos, and they need to be able to heat oil. So it's a really big challenge for them to be able to decarbonise. We, luckily, have our first biomethane project that is now injecting into the gas network. You can see it's a beautiful photo there on the right. If anyone's familiar with Sydney, it's Malabar. It's a beautiful site, and it is the first one that we have. So that is now injecting biomethane into the gas network in New South Wales. What that is basically equivalent of supplying is 6,300 homes per year for their gas usage in Sydney from that project. Secondly, I suppose a really key thing, and this would be a global issue, is around certification and enabling the trading of biomethane. One of the really big challenges in Australia has been the way our policy system has worked around emissions intensity and recording is that it has to be on site. Green Power, which is a government supported initiative in New South Wales, drove the development of a renewable gas certification scheme, which is enabling the purchase of gas certificates. Thereby, you don't have to have all of the gas that you are actually using. A facility that is creating the biomethane can inject that biomethane into the network. It can be contracted and paid for by another entity that is not in that jurisdiction. And there is no molecule that is being tracked, but they can account for the emissions reduction with that. So that was launched in August of 2023. It's starting with biomethane, which is obviously a fantastic outcome for us. Also looking at renewable hydrogen and others. This is the final one. So we've done a lot of work over the last few years. Our focus very much as an industry association is driving outcomes for the sector. So what we've been able to achieve is changes to the gas law so that we can actually have biomethane in the pipelines. We now have an emissions reduction fund method, so an ERF method. And in Australia, what that means is you can basically be supported through reducing emissions with financial incentives. We have biomethane now recognised in NGERS, and NGERS is our accounting system for emissions reduction. And we're working to, as I said earlier, around a certification scheme, but we are working to a place where there can be a market-based mechanism rather than a location-based mechanism. And as I said, looking at that certification, so those certificates of origin that can really provide clarity to customers that what they are purchasing is valid and credible, and the emissions intensity of that. As I said, we have our first project, which is great. There's quite a few more which are moving forward. But really what we've seen in relation to driving the agenda in this space is the federal government have taken a step back, the national government, and said, we need gas in this country. There are many sectors of our economy that are reliant on gas. So we need to figure out how we're going to decarbonise. So it's really starting to get a lot of work within the federal government in supporting it within policy areas. The next point, so standards in Australia is a really important thing. And the gas standard in Australia is really prohibitive in relation to being able to enable biomethane. And it is, so we are working with Standards Australia through a working group to look at some options around the oxygen, nitrogen and siloxanes so that there can be a little bit more flexibility, which will obviously reduce the cost of upgrading that biogas. And in New South Wales, which is the state that I mentioned, where Sydney is, we have a state government which is working on creating the opportunity there for supporting biogas. And that is me, that's the Australian swimming 4 girls who won gold in the relay. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your presentation. One question before we move forward. So
Yeah.
right now in Australia, there is one biomethane project at a wastewater treatment plant. So do you think the upcoming projects will focus more on the landfill and wastewater treatment plant side, or do you think there will be a rise in the number of agricultural projects that are in development?
Yeah, so look, I would say I think they're probably in parallel. We're expecting with the policy announcements that have been made even in the last 5 weeks, it's really spurred on a lot. So we think we're going to go from around 250 projects to probably 1,000 projects in the next 3 years. It's going to be a massive movement. The low-hanging fruit is obviously in those wastewater treatment and conversion of landfill. In Australia at the moment, for the last 20 years, we have had a policy environment which has incentivised renewable electricity, but not renewable gas. So what that meant is that all of the landfill gas is currently being converted into electricity and injected into the network. And so we really do see that there's going to be a shifting of those projects that will happen. But the ag residues for us in Australia is where we are going to have the large scale projects, the 4 petajoule and the like. And so there's almost this, both of them are happening at the same time. And you know, expectation is regarding policy that will continue to move with both of them happening in parallel.
All right, great. Thank you. Just as a reminder, If you could ask any questions in the chat, we will get to them at the end of the webinar in the Q&A section. So thank you again for your presentation. Next, we have Niraj Kunkulol. Niraj has been working at Bright Renewables for over 1.5 years as a sales engineer and area sales manager for Scandinavia, Australia, and Asia. He focuses on biogas upgrading, CO2 liquefaction, and bioenergy projects.
Hello, everyone. Let me share my screen first. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
It's perfect then. Yes, I'm here to speak about the opportunities and challenges for the Australian biogas market. And I will start first with introducing Bright Renewables and what we do. So we are part of the host group with more than 500 employees, which started in 1991. In terms of biogas upgrading, we have more than 225 installations globally in 35 plus countries, mostly biogas upgrading systems, but we also have several CO2 liquefaction systems and a couple of LNG systems also coming up in Europe. We have our headquarters in the Netherlands, but also have our local presence in France, Latvia, Italy, Germany, UK, US, and our production facility in Poland. To give you a brief scope of what Bright does is you can see here on the left hand side you have the biogas plant where you produce biogas, and Bright scope starts after the biogas is being produced. So first of all, to upgrade the biogas from with, let's say, about 50 to 65% methane basically to RNG, which is around 97% methane. And it can be injected into grid or converted into bio CNG with having a compressor, or converted into bio LNG. At the same time, the CO2 that is separated during the process can be liquefied and converted to food grade liquid CO2 with several options to use it in the food grade industry or manufacturing facilities, or also in sustainable, let's say, producing synthetic fuel out of it. Now, coming to the topic of discussion today, which is opportunities and challenges in the Australian segment or Australian market. As also Shahana mentioned earlier in her presentation, the potential is huge. You can see Australia can produce up to 105 petajoules of renewable gas annually currently, which can replace about 23% of the total gas consumption, which is a clear path towards reducing emissions and at the same time enhancing sustainability. At the same time, the existing gas network can be used in order to supply and integrate this renewable gas into the energy mix, which makes it even more attractive. And this biogas or biomethane plants can serve as a decentralized hub to produce biogenic CO2, which can be utilized in beverage, food industries, manufacturing facilities, agriculture, and also making synthetic fuel out of it. And at the same time, the digestate can be used as organic fertilizer, which helps with food security. But it comes with its own challenges, particularly with the standards that are followed in Australia. First of all, the AS 4564 standard, which is about the biomethane specification. It is quite strict in terms of the oxygen, the inert gases, and the higher heating values that the biomethane needs to comply with, which is quite strict compared to let's say what we see globally. At the same time, the engineering standards that are followed also increases the cost of the biogas upgrading system, which we see is one of the biggest challenge. At the same time, financial incentives or subsidies or feed-in tariffs or decarbonization credit, which has recently started, and if those are promoted, then definitely the renewable gases can compete against the fossil fuels that are there at much cheaper prices. And at the same time, developing the market for the liquid CO2 that can be produced, that would add to additional revenue source for the developers for these projects. But it comes. It's not like the market is not growing. The market is progressing quite nicely. Australia plans to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, and biomethane by 2050. There's a potential to produce 371 petajoules of energy using biomethane, which can replace more than 22% of the total fossil gas usage, and at the same time reducing up to 31% of GHG emissions. So integrating biomethane in the national energy mix will contribute significantly. At the same time, the renewable gas certification that was started recently would play a vital role, or similar certification would allow additional revenue for this project, and it would stimulate investment in these kind of project. The same time, the Australian Gas Infrastructure Group, which operates the gas grid in Australia, is committed to 10% renewable gas blending by 2030 and full decarbonization by 2050. And that sets a clear pathway for integrating biomethane into the natural gas network, but at the same time ensuring investment toward building the infrastructure so that it can fulfill the commitment would help in possibly achieving the targets in the timeline that has been set. And I would also like to mention that we are working quite actively in Australia. We are working with Optimal Group there to develop several biomethane projects, which will commence in the coming years. To also mention about the Malabar project, which is the first and only biomethane project that is present currently in Australia. We are proud to say that Bright supplied the containerized solution, the equipment that we have, and the engineering for it, and it was the local works was done by an Australian company over there. The maximum capacity of this system is 1100. It can treat 1100 normal meter cubes of biogas every hour with a 99.5% methane recovery, and an annual production of about 200 terajoules of energy, which is approximately 5.65 million normal meter cubes of biomethane, powering about 6,300 houses annually. So there is huge potential, and biomethane can definitely lead the path in decarbonization and reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, and we look forward to having more and more projects in Australia. You can have a look at some of our projects in the Netherlands, where we have upgrading CO2 liquefaction systems, and definitely we would like to see more and more projects coming up in Australia as well. That's it from my side.
Perfect, thank you. Just as a reminder, if there are any questions, to please put them in the Q&A box. One question for Niraj. So Bright's very active in Europe and North America, and it's great to see a focus on the Australian market as well. So as a company, what sort of projects are you focusing on? Will it be more of the wastewater treatment plant side in Australia, or on the agricultural sector?
We are focusing mostly on like wastewater treatment plant are something we can definitely deal with. They come with their own let's say set of challenges, but we have dealt with them here in Europe, so we can definitely also take care of them in Australia. But at the same time, projects particularly from anaerobic digestion are some is, let's say, our strength. And we definitely see a lot more projects coming up. As I mentioned, we are preferred technology suppliers for Optimal Group, and we are working on several anaerobic digestion projects. So starting with supplying digesters, also biogas upgrading equipment, CO2 liquefaction systems there. And we see a huge potential, and in the coming years, we will definitely have multiple projects that will come up in Australia.
Great. Thank you for your presentation. Next, we have Adrian Kronawitter. Adrian is responsible for developing new projects and is the area sales manager for the Austrian, Greek, and Asian markets. He actively supports approval procedures, plant dimensioning, economic offers, profitability calculations, and R&D activities, thus contributing to the company's success. Adrian, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here today. So my name is Adrian Kronawitter. As already mentioned, I'm part of the Biogest sales team, and I'm happy to talk about today, to give you a little overview about the Greek market and to point out some key indicators for successful biomethane projects. So maybe first of all, just to real summarize of Biogest. So we are an international biomethane and biogas plant manufacturer with a headquarter in Vienna, Austria, and also worldwide offices. And with a team of more than 80 employees, we have already completed over 200 biogas and biomethane projects. So they are generating electricity and biomethane all around the world. Our end-to-end supply chain aims to ensure efficient plant operating. So in addition to typical plant design and engineering, we also provide support in project development. And as we are convinced of biogas ourselves, we are always open and happy to discuss about co-investments in the biogas and biomethane sector. So after the construction of a customized plant, we also have a focus on the operation of the plant in the form of technical and biological service, as well as sometimes, if needed, also support in operation and maintenance. So what are the advantages of biomethane and biogas? So biogas is very diverse. It can be used to generate electricity and heat via without an upgrading in a local combined heat and power plant, and can also be used via upgrading, which means removal of the CO2 from the biogas as a direct alternative to fossil natural gas. And like natural gas, and we already heard it from the other presentations, biomethane can be used as a drop-in replacement, meaning that it also can be stored and used without major changes to the existing infrastructure. So accordingly, biomethane can be fed into existing gas grids. However, its use as a fuel in compressed form as well as in a liquefied form is also becoming increasingly important in order to decarbonize the transportation sector, especially in the transport of heavy goods. So biomethane can be continuously produced, stored, and contributes to the reduction of CO2 emissions in the energy transition. And also, which is really important, the utilization of organic waste and agricultural residues enables an efficient use of biomass to close nutrient cycles and follow up a circular economy approach. So let's come to the current situation in Greece. So Greece biogas market is growing steadily with 75 operating biogas plants producing a total of nearly 1.3 gigawatt hours of biogas in 2022. The Greek government's National Energy and Climate Plan has set really ambitious targets, aiming for 2.1 terawatt hours a year of biomethane by 2030 and 9.7 terawatt hours per year by 2050. To support this growth, the government has implemented feed-in tariffs of up to 225 euro per megawatt electrical for agricultural-based biogas plants with use of our combined heat and power plant. The primary feedstock of the existing biogas plants consists of about 88% agricultural residues, so including animal manure, organic fruit and vegetable waste, and also residues from olive oil production. So around 11% energy crops are used, and also subsequent crops are increasing. The expansion of the Greece biogas market is largely driven by the availability of the agricultural residues. and supported by favorable government policies such as the feed-in tariffs, which are actually really high worldwide right now. However, the sector faces quite such challenges, such a lack of infrastructure and connection difficulties in some regions. Despite these challenges, the future looks promising for the biogas and biomethane market in Greece, with ongoing support and clear targets set by the NICP. So let's follow to some. I want to point out to some essential key indicators for really successful biomethane project development, which we are confronted nearly every day. So really, first and foremost, everything hinges on the availability and ideally the early contractual securing of substrates, because with no feedstock, there is no gas production. And it's really often seen that this topic is somehow underestimated. With a trend in Greece, but also in whole Europe towards an increased use of lignocellulosic waste and residues, it is crucial to examine which necessary technologies are available to digestate these substrates in an efficient and energy-saving way. Especially regarding biomethane production is really important, the certification of the raw materials and also associated the marketing of the gas. The recognition of CO2 certificates should therefore also addressed at an early stage. Also, digested management we see should not be neglected even at the early stage of a project development, because in this context of a sustainable circular economy, it's really important to ensure the valuable digestate are directed to where they are needed, particularly to the crops we are cultivating for food and animal feed. So it should definitely be noted that high quality organic fertilizer is produced in biogas production, which also has a market value and can be sold accordingly. Furthermore, also always a big point is scientific and technological innovations should always be considered to maximize the potential of the available substrates. So by integrating the latest research and technology, we can ensure the most efficient, sustainable use of the resources. So as already mentioned, the use of straw biomass is steadily increasing. So this biomass is usually has a higher proportion of lignocellulose than typical whole crop energy plants, silage or municipal waste, which mainly consists of more simple carbohydrates. Due to its composition, the lignocellulosic biomass usually has a very fibrous structure, which in turn directs increased attention to the digester and especially the agitator technology. As you can see, we Biogest have developed a special type of digester, the so-called power ring, in addition to the conventional digesters such as the power digest, which is a classical digester with gas holder, or the power SPF, which is also a conventional digester but with concrete roof, and even compared to the power tower, which is mainly designed for the North American big dairy farms. So let's come to the power ring. Sorry, this technology is a ring-and-ring solution, which means that there are two digesters in one. So the main digester is arranged in a ring around the second post-digester, as you can see here on the picture. So the particular advantages of this powering system is that it can process substrates that are very difficult to degrade, and at the same time, it has a particular low energy consumption. The main reason for this is the channel-like shape of the main digester, the outer ring, which makes it much easier to mix the biomass and ensure no floating layer is created and all substrates are well mixed. In addition, this concrete sealing, which we have here on the power ring, minimizes heat losses and makes heating in the secondary digester, so the inner digester, unnecessary. In addition, maintenance relevant parts are easy to access due to the positioning via the concrete roof from the top. Also, these agitators are arranged in such a way that horizontal mixing is achieved by pushing forward in this channel-like shape. Also, offset positioning of the agitators within the ring also lead to very good vertical mixing. So this arrangement enables optimized mixing of the biomass and effectively prevents the formation of the floating layers. So all in all, this powering system achieves a great mix with a great mixing technology with reduced energy input than a normal conventional digester. And at the end of the day, better mixing means greater flexibility to changed feedstocks and also to higher gas outputs put with an optimized hydraulic retention time. Well, with this in mind, thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you for your presentation. So maybe a quick question before we move on. So what are some typical feedstock compositions that you've seen maybe in the Greek market?
Yeah, so as I already mentioned, the importance of this lignocellulosic biomass is really increased. So we always see at least a share of 30% based in animal manure, either slurry or yeah, solid manure. And also the increased use of municipal waste is definitely an upcoming feedstock.
Great, thank you for your presentation. So next we have Joaquim Cunha, Sales Manager at Sysadvance. With over 20 years of international experience, Joaquim has a proven track record of creating business opportunities and leading commercial teams in diverse geographies. Currently, Joaquim serves at Sysadvance, where he's responsible for business development and product sales in the energy division. His enthusiasm for collaboration drives him to build relationships of mutual benefit, significantly contributing to the growth of the renewable energy sector. In terms of academic credentials, he holds an MBA in commercial operations from the Catholic University of Porto, is a graduate of the INCAE Senior Management Program, and has a degree in business administration. His comprehensive education and professional background uniquely position him to offer valuable perspectives on the biomethane market, specifically an emerging market like Turkey. Joachim, I'll pass it over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Ryan, for the presentation, and thank you, BiogasWorld, for the invitation. I'm here representing Sysadvance, which is a family-owned company and active since 2002. We are an academic spin-off from a research lab at University of Porto, and since we already had some knowledge for the separation systems, both membrane and PSA systems. And from 2002, we decided to engage on the commercialization of solutions using the PSA technology. Our first product has been gas generators, both for oxygen and nitrogen. And a little later, in 2012, we entered the medical market, supplying medical oxygen and some other solutions for hospitals. And 3 years later, in 2015, we entered the energy market, supplying solutions for biogas upgrading. So the company is based in Porto. We start with biogas, and we are going to deliver the product ready to inject on the grid or to be compressed for different applications. Our extensive knowledge with the PSA systems, with more than 4,000 systems installed, has allowed us to be successful and to deploy, I would say, the technology all around the world. As of today, we are present in North America, and another one in the Baltics. In terms of value chain, I mean, we do everything. So we are responsible for the research and development of the solutions we are proposing. We are developing the products there. I mean, designing solutions that will be object of some kind of standardization for a more efficient delivery to the customers, as well as the engineering and manufacturing of the solutions. So as of today, I mean, the product portfolio of the company is organized in 3 divisions: industrial, medical, and energy. And within the energy divisions, we have solutions to upgrade biogas from anaerobic digestion, as to upgrade landfill gas and it into biomethane. Additionally, we also deploy solutions to reduce the ate in digesters, as well as some purification solutions both for hydrogen and helium. Basically, the PSA technology is a set of columns full with an absorbent medium, which allows us to detect specific contaminants. So basically, when we think of the biogas goes through the column that is filled with medium. We are going to retain the contaminants like CO2, but also nitrogen and oxygen. And then we let go and we release the final product, the biomethane, with the required purity. Usually it's a high purity, above 97%. At the same time, with a recovery, so the recovery above 99.5. In terms of origin of the gas, it can be from different types of organic matter, wastewater treatment plants, organic waste, agro waste, manure from different animals, but also landfill gas, with systems ranging from the smallest one, around 100 normal cubic meters, up to 3,000 cubic meters. Main advantages of the system, of the PSA system, are clean tech. So there's no water, no solvents, no waste. Basically, we use some electricity for the process. And due to the technology that we are using, we are able to adjust the technology to the biogas that is going to be treated. That's why we speak of customization flexibility. The system works with a reduced power consumption, so it's one of the most efficient technologies in the market by normal cubic meter of biogas, and while at the same time delivers, the required recovery rates, both in aerobic digestion as well as in landfill gas. It's our own technology, so it's a proprietary technology that we have developed and together with technology we integrate some components from I would say first year supply in order to ensure the quality of the product, so that it is a reliable solution for our clients. We were asked to speak a little bit about the Turkish market, so we were the first ones to deploy a biomethane production, a biomethane plant in Turkey. This installation is working for 1 year now, a little more than 1 year, and is producing biomethane from food waste. So it's a project we have done with a long-time client that was previously buying nitrogen generators from us in order to preserve the freshness of the product they are producing. And when they decided to decarbonize, they invited us to present a solution which enables them to replace 30% of the gas they were using in order to prepare the products of the ship. Regulation. So it's not possible to we are producing for their own consumption. They were the first ones to produce biomethane in Turkey, so it was first. And nowadays, we are working together with local authorities trying to promote the regulation of market in order to fulfill the opportunity that we enable to produce more methane, not only from organic waste, but also from landfill sites. Besides this project, I would like to show you two other projects, one in Latvia that it was commissioned last year. It's a huge plant treating 3,000 cubic meters of biogas produced exclusively from chicken manure. Always with the same power consumption, so it's low power consumption per cubic meter of biogas, and while delivering the recovery is higher than 99.5. As I mentioned before, the company is present in North America, where a subsidiary is 2 years ago, and this year we are installing 9 products. All of them around the dairy farms with different sizes, ranging from the smallest to 360 normal cubic meters up to 2,000 normal cubic meters of biogas. Finally, as mentioned before, besides upgrading biogas from anaerobic digestion, we do have a proprietary solution that enables us to produce biomethane from land gas. This is one of the plants we have built. It's located in the south of Spain, and since 3 years ago, it's producing biomethane with a quality that enables liquid injection. So, basically, this was my presentation, giving you an overview of some of the projects we have solved, an overview of the solutions we are deploying, and just to finalize with some of the associations of which we are members, and we are trying through them to promote the development of biomethane and renewable energies in the market. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you for your presentation. Maybe one quick question before we move on. So compared to other types of biogas upgrading, what are some of the characteristics of PSA that might provide it some advantages?
Well, I would say that PSA, probably one of the more interesting features is the capacity to reduce the oxygen content. So besides reducing CO2, we are able to reduce oxygen, which in a context in which the pipeline is requiring a low content of oxygen is an important advantage. But at the same time, as the biogas is changing and according to the waste that's used to produce it, our flexibility also enables us to reply in a proper way, allowing to fulfill the requirements of need without any major limitation. We don't use water. The need is pretty reliable, not susceptible to degradation from different substances. And finally, I would say besides the low energy consumption, the possibility to customize the media and to give the client almost customize the solution for the business.
Perfect. Thank you. So
Thank
finally,
you very much,
sorry?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So finally, I will give just a brief overview on the Irish market before we move into our Q&A. Could you stop sharing your screen, please? Perfect. Thank you. All right. So biogas in Ireland. Looking to the right, I have a breakdown of the number of facilities in Ireland. There are approximately 44 facilities across the country, 5 of which are upgrading to biomethane. Biomethane is a relatively new direction for biogas use in Ireland, with all 5 units commissioned during or after 2020. Of the facilities upgrading to biomethane, 2 are processing municipal wastes, 1 processes industrial wastes, and the other 2 are pilot projects at agricultural sites. On the development side, there are at least 5 facilities currently in development, and a number of companies have put forward targets for development. Through the Climate Action Plan, by 2030, Ireland has set a target for biomethane to supply up to 10% of its total gas demand, or approximately 5.7 terawatt hours. It's estimated that to achieve this goal, at least 140 to 200 new facilities would need to be commissioned. The EU has estimated that if Ireland was able to realize its full potential, around 20% of its current natural gas demand could be substituted. In October of 2023, Gas Networks Ireland released an RFI to propose to prospective biomethane producers for feasible projects and received 176 responses, which represented about 14.8 terawatt hours of annual production. Many of these responses came from potential projects in the east and south of the country. And then the chart on the right is from the report released from Gas Networks Ireland on their findings from the responses. So it shows that the proposed feedstocks of many of the projects submitted. So responses indicate that animal slurry and forage account for approximately 2/3 of potential projects, followed by other crops, commercial biodegradable materials, and processing byproducts. Ireland's new National Biomethane Strategy, published this past May, also outlines new policies to support the development of Irish biomethane. The first is the Renewable Heat Obligation, which will be implemented before the end of 2024 and supports the use of biomethane to decarbonize the heating sector. And the second is capital grant support, which includes 40 million euros in funding through the Repower EU program to assist with project costs. The Irish market is keen for development, and there are a number of areas of opportunity for this development. As demonstrated in the Gas Networks Ireland RFI, there is high interest in exploring the development of biomethane and potentially 14.8 terawatt hours of potential, which would equate to about 26% of the country's current gas demand. Ireland has experienced strong investments in recent years, supporting the development of its biomethane industry. The European Biogas Association has identified 340 million euros in investments within the country. In addition, funds are available through the EU's European Infrastructure Bank, as well as the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund, which has earmarked about 1 billion euros for biogas development. In addition, the National Biomethane Strategy has established a working group to explore how they can better develop a scheme to support biomethane on small-scale farms. In recent years, there has been a growing interest in valorizing biogenic CO2 produced during anaerobic digestion. In the National Biomethane Strategy, the Irish government identified the valorization of this CO2 as a potential supplier for the developing green methanol and sustainable aviation fuel industries within the country. The sustainable management and use of digestate was also identified in the National Biomethane Strategy as an effective form of nutrient management and nitrogen recovery, and as a bio-based fertilizer alternative to synthetic fertilizers. Finally, Ireland shares many challenges with other markets developing their biomethane industries. The first relates to the cost of building out the infrastructure required, with an average distance of 5 kilometers between farms and pipeline infrastructure. Gas Networks Ireland estimates that the connection costs associated with realizing the 14.8 terawatt hours of potential would be about 586 million euros. One of the current pilots in Ireland, Teagasc Grange, is attempting to identify how economically feasible it is to co-digest grass silage with cattle slurry. The project found silage would need to be sold at least 30 to 40 euros per ton to be advantageous over tillage. And then although biogas and biomethane are quite well established in Europe, it's a relatively new technology in Ireland, and as such needs to ensure it spends the appropriate amount of time educating farmers and communities on how the technology works and how they contribute to the circular economic structure. For example, the Teagasc project found that many farmers who would refuse supplying silage to an 80 facility, which they attributed to a lack of general awareness. And then other common challenges, such as cumbersome regulatory procedures, are addressed through the National Biomethane Strategy, and methods such as increased technological awareness and guidelines to support local authorities to assess proposals are planned actions. So thank you for your attention for that, and we will move into some of the questions that we've received. Our first question for our panelists are: offtake arrangements are increasingly important in arranging financing and tapping investors in project development in the renewable space in general. So can you speak to the financing aspect in the emerging markets that we've discussed today?
I think, yeah, like the offtake arrangements are definitely important to make your business case and understand how exactly you're going to earn. We do also help our clients with offtake agreements because we also own and operate some of our let's say biogas biomethane facilities. One of the things that we definitely see helps is the CI score, and that's how you get the price in Netherlands or Germany for your biomethane. So the lower the CI score, the better price you get, and that really helps for developers to be sustainable with their plant and earn it's a good price for the biomethane that they have.
So another question would be on digestate treatment. So typically how the digestate is treated and what technologies that you see emerging.
Digestate treatment, which is really standard, is separation via screw press separator into solid and liquid phase. So you have different shares in both phases in nutrients, and also definitely the solid part makes it easier to transport the nutrients than the liquid high water content digestate.
Thank you. That brings us just about to the end of the hour here. So any additional questions before we end? Sorry, if there are any last thoughts the panelists would like to leave us on, I invite you guys to provide your parting thoughts.
Yeah, I would say it's important that these kind of projects, especially biomethane projects, come up because we see a lot of potential, a lot of bio waste which is available and not used to its fullest potential, and it can help many countries, many emerging markets where they don't have biogas, like where they don't use where they don't make use of this bio waste that they have, but it can add to their energy security as well as food security and help them diversify their energy mix, which not only helps being energy sustainable, but at the same time reduce their energy greenhouse gas emissions, which is the need of the hour. So yeah, there's definitely need to promote these projects.
Thank you.
I think I would probably just say that Australia is 10 to 15 years behind globally, but we're about to take off. So it's a good time to be engaging and understanding what the opportunities are in Australia.
Great, thank you. Joaquim?
I would say that for the emerging markets to be able to develop, it's very important that we all work together, mainly through the local associations, national associations, group of people that could work together with policymakers, because in the end, the technology is available, the residues, the organic waste is available, and sometimes we just need a little help from the authorities and from the regulation in order to start the first projects in a market. And then, after the first and the second one, things become easier because people understand the usefulness of these type of technologies and the usefulness of producing energy in a decentralized and renewable way.
Thank you. Adrian?
Yeah, I think also it's really important to get a better focus on biomethane producing, because usually it's like with CHP with CHP usage of the biogas, you produce a lot of heat where you don't actually need it, and this is a point we definitely need to optimize.
Great, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for your patience as we go just a little bit over the hour here. So that concludes our time today. As a reminder, the webinar will be shared with participants next week. If we were unable to get to your questions, we'll share them with our presenters and invite them to send a response to the question via the biogas community. We invite everyone to join us on the community platform to stay up to date with content from our Emerging Biogas Markets Focus Month and to participate in August's Focus Month on the Indian biogas market. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today and thank our presenters again, Shahana McKenzie, CEO of Bioenergy Australia, Niraj Kunkulol, Sales Engineer at Bright Renewables, Adrian Kronawitter, Sales Manager at Biogest, and Joaquim Cunha, Sales Manager Energy Division at Sysadvance. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.